and welcome to the show today. We're so excited. If you've been looking for a way to actually earn some extra income, or perhaps you wanted to be an entrepreneur and you were looking for a way to do that with the least amount of actually having to have your own upfront costs, like going to a bank. If you're in real estate investing, you might have to go to a bank and get a loan. If you're looking for a way to get into real estate investing, but not have to go get a mortgage or have to come up with a whole lot of cash, a whole pile of cash, well, we have a show for you today that you're going to love, and a very special guest today. Bob Diamond is here with us. He is America's tax sale attorney. He has been seen on everything from Fox to NBC, ABC, even Sirius XM radio, and many podcasts. So I'm excited today to have a conversation with him so that you can learn a little bit about this very unique opportunity. So welcome to the show, Bob Diamond.
Thanks, Jennifer. It is great to be here, and thanks for the kind words. It's awesome.
It's such a pleasure to have you, Bob, because this is something very unique. I want to start first with, how did you discover such an interesting niche in the real estate investing?
I literally just stumbled across it very luckily. So back in 2005, I had a client in my law office that had lost a property at tax sale. And he wanted to try to overturn the tax sale. What happens with this tax sale sometimes, if there's a technical defect, they can't prove that they gave notice or they did the math wrong, then you get them overturned and get the property back. So I went down to the courthouse, pulled the file, went through it line by line, and there's really just nothing there. And so I reported back to my client and I said, there's just nothing to really do here. You can pay me, but I think we'd ultimately be unsuccessful, and I don't like unhappy clients, so I think it's a bad idea. I said, but I have this other idea. I said, your property sold for about $20,000 more than you owed in taxes. And I said, so my thought is that you should get that money back. I said, I'd been an attorney at that point since 1995, focused on real estate. But even though it was 2005, I still didn't know about this. And I said, just my thought, though, is that I can ask a judge to give us the money over and above the taxes back, because they don't need that to cover the taxes. So I said, hire me to do that, and I'll go work on that issue. So he hired me to do that. I did that work, and I got back a check. So I got him back his money over and above the taxes he owed. And really, I didn't think much more about it. It was just another case I had handled for a client. Successful, but just another case. And so then in 2011, I ran into another client who was doing something he called the Overages business. And I said, what is the Overages business? I don't know about this. And he said, when a property is sold at tax sale, if it sells for more than the tax debt, I go and get the extra money. And I said, I did one of those once. I said, but how's that a business? I didn't quite understand the linkage. And he said, there are lists. And I said, there are lists? And he said, yeah, there are lists. I get the lists, I contact the people, and I sign them up with a contingent fee. And I thought, this is absolutely brilliant. I thought a really good business where you can really help someone, because I know how happy my client was when he got his money back, when he thought everything had been lost. He was thrilled. I thought, this is a really cool business. So I actually worked with my client showing me the business side of things. I knew the legal side. So I learned the business side, how to get those lists and how to find the people, how to talk to them, and how to get them signed up. And I was like, this is really great. And that's how the business started, really just luckily stumbling upon it. And I think it's most luckily, not only is it a great business, but you help people who really need some help. They've lost so much, and we're helping them get some money back, some dignity back, and really some hope back.
And let's talk about that, because there are so many people that are out there that their property actually does go to tax sale, but they had equity in the property.
Yes.
And I've seen this it's so sad, because when somebody is facing foreclosure, they're usually overwhelmed. They have a lot of debts. And quite frankly, a lot of times it's one of the D's, I want to call it: divorce, death, disease. Something could be happening in their life.
Yes.
And they don't know what to do. So they're so overwhelmed, because one of the things that I've heard about this is that people just don't believe this. How could you actually let a property go to foreclosure when you had equity in it?
They do. I mean, I often get that question from people. They say, well, why does this happen? Why do properties go to tax sale? In some ways, the why is irrelevant. And it's only irrelevant in the sense that we recover money for people where the money is there, the sale has happened. But it's a valid question. So let me just address it so I can kind of put it to bed. So you have people, it is the D's, the death, disease, just, sadness in life, hard things. Yeah. And they do get just paralyzed, and they don't deal with the problems as they come up. So houses that are often free and clear get lost at tax sale. And I know as hard as that is to believe, but the number is about 3,000 properties per day are lost at tax sale. So regardless of the reasons, the fact is at the end of the day, about 3,000 properties are lost every day at tax sale.
That's an amazing number.
Yeah, amazing and sad, tragic number, but yes.
Yeah. And especially because it's at a time when people really need that money. And if they knew how to access that money, and again, because it's usually a time where there's so much turmoil, they don't know how to. So in some ways, I feel like this is such a great silver lining. It's a happy thing that we can end up doing. So this is a business, and I want to go back to what is happening with the government and maybe talk about this wonderful word, escheat.
Escheat.
Escheat. So this means that the government gets the money?
Yes.
Right.
So what happens if you don't, so the tax sale happens.
Yeah.
And then, they pay the taxes that are due, penalties, interest, and cost of the sale from what they bring in from the tax sale. And when there's extra money over and above that, then that money is the money we're talking about. That's what's sitting around because the taxes have been paid, the cost of the sale has been paid, everything's been taken care of. And then there's this extra pile of money. And it tends to sit there for two reasons. One, people have no idea. Like people, I think, just think the government sold my house, so they keep the money. Because we'd naturally think that. If, the store sells me the watch, I give them the money, they keep it.
Right.
That's not really what's going on. What's really going on is your property is being forced to a public auction because taxes are due, and then the money ends up being collected by the taxing authority. But they're only entitled to what they're owed, which I think makes sense to everybody when you think about it. They're entitled to collect everything they're owed, plus what it costs to collect. But anything above that should be given to the former owner. Now you might say, well, doesn't the government, go track people down?
Because
No.
you think the government would at least make the effort.
No, they do. It's kind of like your income taxes.
Yeah.
If you didn't file a tax return, would you get your refund? No.
No.
Even though they know, they get your W-2 from your employer, they collected the money. If you ask, they'll give you the money. There's no issue that they don't get mad at you or anything. But if you don't ask, you don't get. And it's really that simple. You have to ask. But in order to ask, you have to know that the money exists.
Right.
And that's where they just don't know. And the government really doesn't do anything to notify people. This happens nationwide. In one or two states, they'll send out a letter a month or two after the sale to the house, and the letter doesn't say what you wish it would say, which would be, oh, we have X dollars here, we should come down and get it. It doesn't say that. It'll say typically 3 pages, and it says something like, pursuant to public law, blah, 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 your property is exposed to a sale, blah, blah, blah. If you want to know the results or have more information, please contact our office. Nobody is contacting the office of the people that just foreclosed on their house. They're just not.
Right.
They're petrified. They got their house sold out from under them. They're running away. They also, in all honesty, they're probably not there, but even if they were, they're not opening that mail.
And even if that mail gets forwarded, again, like you just said, even if it went through forward and it forwarded like 2 or 3 times, by the time it catches up with them, there's no way they believe that they should call because...
It doesn't say why to call. It doesn't say, we have $40,000 for you, please call us. If it said that, people would call.
Right. Of course.
The other thing that happens, and if you've ever dealt with anybody who's in foreclosure or pre-foreclosure, when they get those official looking letters, certified mail, things with government stamps on them, like the return address, they don't open them.
Right.
They put them in a drawer because they think this is just more bad news. And they're struggling, as you pointed out earlier, they're struggling in life, they're struggling financially. Everything that comes to them in the mail is bad news, like a collection notice and all. So they're ducking. They're not looking.
It's so sad. And so let's paint the picture. So how many, I know I've asked you this question before, but how many billions of dollars are out there right now that are sitting in the government's accounts that could be claimed?
A couple of billion. It's hard to get a snapshot because every day there are 3,000 properties that come in and there's not one database. That's one of the things you have to do in the business is understand how to access the databases. And there are about 3,200 separate databases. So what you're doing is, when we teach people to do this, we teach you, look, if you're going to work in this place, this is where you get the leads. But we can't, in one day, just pull all 3,200 databases and add them up.
Exactly. It's way too much. But just to know that there's a surplus. There's billions and billions of this. So if somebody is listening or watching today and they were thinking about wanting to do this themselves as their own business, what are some of the things that they would need to do? Is there 3, 4, or 5 steps that you could go through?
So it's pretty straightforward business. So the first thing you do is you're going to get the lists.
Yes.
So we teach people what areas are the best to do this in, everything down to even like the exact county, townships, things like that, even to that level. So we teach you that. So you pick your place. Then we teach you how to get the lists. And they're public records lists, not hard to get. So you get your public records list, and then that'll give you the name of the person owed the money, how much they're owed. And then we teach you how to find those people. These days, that's gotten fairly easy. Yeah. Once upon a time, that was hard. It's called skip tracing. That's gotten really easy because the biggest companies in the world, like Google and Facebook, are really just big data collections companies.
Yeah.
And they make it easy to find everybody. So we'll get their phone number, their cell phone number, their email address, all that, so it's easy to reach them. And then the next step is reaching out to them. And this really is where the magic is, because everybody you talk to, pretty much to a person, is going to be skeptical. You're calling them up, this poor soul that's lost their house at a tax sale, had such a difficult time in life, and you're saying, hey, Joe, I'm so glad I got a hold of you. You're owed a $50,000 refund, and my company does that, recovery work on a contingent fee. If you'd like to work with us, no charge up front. We only get paid if we recover money for you. Won't cost you anything, and if it doesn't work out, it doesn't cost you anything. The problem is that poor Joe over there has been through the mill. He's had a hard time, so you really have to work through that with him. So we spent a lot of time training the people we train on how to get through that natural skepticism. And you have to walk at the pace they'll walk. As I say, this is a great business for nice people. This is not to shove them into something like, oh, you got to wire money for this rocket stock today. It's not that.
No.
It's not that kind of business. It really is just walking with them at the pace they're comfortable with, talking to them, and building a relationship enough. You just have to build enough relationship. They say, I'll try this.
Right.
I know that it may not work out. Maybe I won't get the money, but it won't cost me anything, and it's free to try. And I think it's almost like a free lottery ticket.
Right.
And we'll even go get the lottery ticket for them. And if it wins, great. And if it doesn't, it doesn't.
So first of all, you go and you get the list. And then second, you skip trace, which of course is you search it. Now, number 3, you have to convince them that this is really true and not just a joke or a scam, which again, there are so many scams that it does take people back.
Yes.
And then what's next?
And then next, you sign them up. Easy. We do that remotely. You don't have to actually go out there or anything.
Yeah.
So we have someone go out, sign them up. And for everybody who works with us, we teach you and give you the access to those people. And not my people, they're independent contractors. They'll go out, get the person signed up, return the papers to you, and then you just turn them in, and a couple months later, you'll get a check.
Yay!
So it's pretty straightforward. And when you say convincing people, I would just say it's more like you're walking at the pace they can walk. It's not, this definitely is not like a salesman or saleswoman kind of job.
No.
It's more like you're offering a service, you're offering to help, and they desperately need help. And when I think about how far you have to get them to, you just have to get them to the point where they say, I'll give this a try. I know it may not work out. Mm-hmm. I know it may not result in anything, but when they're talking to me, they're like, I know, Bob, you'll take all the risk. You'll put in all the work. You'll make all the effort. If you're successful, you get paid. If you don't, then I don't have to pay anything. And that's how we get people, because once they realize there's really no risk at all to them, I don't need their social security number. I don't need their credit card. I don't need their bank account. I don't need any of it.
Yeah.
I need them to just sign the papers, give me permission to go pursue the money, and give me their mailing address so I can mail them their check. That's really that simple. And
so the fun part is when you actually get to mail them the check. And sometimes I know you hand it in person too.
Yes,
right?
Occasionally I'll go out. And I'll tell you a funny story. I had this vision once of doing like the Publishers Clearinghouse thing. I don't know if you remember the old Ed McMahon, show up with balloons and a giant check. So I had this vision. I was going to actually rent a Chrysler minivan and go do this. And by imagination, this nice suburban house, like Publishers Clearinghouse, always this nice suburban house. It's really pretty. It's got a nice lawn, smiling people, balloons and everything. That was not the way the story worked out. This is probably more typical. So I talked to one of my clients. She had $32,000 that we had recovered for her. And she had a really hard time. She had ended up in the hospital with such bad injuries. They put her in a medical coma for almost a month. And then when she got out of her medical coma, she had to go through physical therapy to learn how to walk again. It's a really tough time. When she was finally discharged, she was discharged into a homeless shelter. Wow. So I was going up to meet her, get her out of the homeless shelter, take her to the bank, just help her get resituated. And so instead of the nice suburban house, it was this really rough section of Hartford, Connecticut, and trash all over the streets. People, like guys in like hoodies stand at the street corners, and I show up in my like nice little attorney suit, and park at the homeless shelter. Had a couple of ladies offer to, have dinner with me, things like that. That was something. So anyways, I ended up in this homeless shelter.
Yeah. And
the woman's name is Carrie. So I pick Carrie up and we take her out for the day to go to the bank, open up a bank account for her. I took her out to lunch and just get her resituated in life.
Because you couldn't give her a whole stack of cash.
Yeah, if you give a person living in a homeless shelter $32,000 that evening, they won't have it in the morning.
Right.
So we went to the bank, opened up a bank account for her and did that. And it's really fun. She actually texted me about 2 months ago saying, hey, I just want to let you know I'm all set. I've got a place to live now. Oh. We actually helped her get her pension going. She was owed a state pension, but she had a whole bunch of just, as they say, sometimes people, if they don't have bad luck, they'd have no luck at all.
Right.
This poor woman was owed a state pension. And when she ended up in the hospital, she lost her wallet because she went in the hospital. They put her in a medical coma. Her wallet didn't make it. Her false teeth didn't make it. Her glasses didn't make it. Because as she was moved around between rooms, I guess that stuff didn't make it. So she had no ID, which meant she couldn't get her pension started because she needed to go down to the state of Connecticut, whoever the pension people are, show them ID and sign the retirement paperwork. She didn't have anything.
It's so sad.
So then we were helping her get new ID. And so we get a certified copy of her birth certificate. And her first name, as she used it all her life, was Carrie. Common first name, right?
Yeah.
On her birth certificate, it says Cassie. So the state of Connecticut said, well, that's not the person that worked for us, Cassie.
Oh, wow.
We had Carrie, so we can't give her the pension. So we had to help her get a name change petition done. We did it, though. She got through it. And so today, she is living in a house again. She has a car. She has her own clothes. She has her own things. And she wrote a big thank you, which is one of the things you get in this business is big thank yous from people. Yay. Because her whole life has changed. Yeah. And now, she said to me in her text, she's like, I'm not rich, but I'm not homeless and everything's okay again. Yeah. And I was like, it's such a great thing to be a part of a business like that, where you can just really help people who've had such a hard time. And often it's not, there's some fault that lies in almost all these cases. There's some things they did that were not right. Carrie didn't take care of things quick enough. She knows that and she fessed up to it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they don't deserve what happened to them. Right. And it's just sometimes people get overwhelmed and they just get frozen and they just don't take care of things and then things collapse around them.
Yeah.
And sometimes it takes us as overages professionals coming in and just helping get reset again. And that's a lot of what we do. We just help people. We make good money at it. Nothing wrong with making a living. Got to do that. But I think the core of this business and the person this business is right for is someone who truly wants to help people and is comfortable making a lot of money. You got to have both. If you're that, then yes, the business is for you.
Yeah. And for somebody who is at home right now, especially after all the turmoil over the past few years, if somebody is thinking they want a business that they can work from home, you had mentioned before about being able to send out a notary public to the house. Can they do the entire business from their house?
Yes, completely. We especially had to dial it in during COVID because we couldn't go to people's houses. We couldn't, nobody's meeting in person.
Right.
We've figured out a way to do everything remotely. Get all the agreements signed, get the documents to be notarized, everything can be done remotely. You could do this literally when you're traveling around. I had one guy I was talking to, his dream is to visit all the national parks.
Oh, nice.
And I said, as long as you have a wireless hotspot or hotel internet at night, you're fine. And just your cell phone. Yeah. Because this business is really about talking to people, walking across what I call the bridge of disbelief and skepticism. Like they have to just understand you enough so that they say, all right, there's no risk to me. I'll try it.
Right.
They don't have to believe that they'll definitely get the money. They just have to say, I'll try it because I have nothing to lose.
Right. So also for somebody who is an entrepreneur who's been thinking about maybe getting into real estate investing or maybe getting into, all these things that they see on different television shows, like I can flip a house or I can get in there and I can, there are different things that people have thought about doing, which require you going to the bank, require you getting approved for a mortgage, requiring you coming up with a bunch of cash. And in this business, do you need to come up with a bunch of cash to do it?
No, it's very, you'll send a mobile notary out that's typically $60 to $65. You'll mail in the claim, that's whatever, $5 worth of postage, whatever it is. Very, very low cost. And, I love the house flipping business. I used to do that back in the day.
Yep.
What I didn't love about the house flipping business was you're signing for mortgages, you're putting in, down payments, And you also deal with contractors. And contractors, I love some of them, but some of them are just kindergartners with hammers. And it's just rough. And every construction project they've ever been involved in, which is many,
right,
they go over budget, over time. And again, sometimes not the guy's fault. It's like, we're sorry, windows went up by a third.
Right.
So our window bid is no longer $16,000, it's now $22,000. Like,
right.
Okay. I mean, and that's just the way it is. And if you don't pay them, they won't put in your windows. And, to add on today with, supply chain issues and things delivering slowly, I think house flipping is really attractive, but relatively complicated. And, I think it's fun, but I think it's got a lot of issues.
And I think it has a high risk.
A lot of risk. Because if there's a downturn, you're toast.
Yeah. And then with this business, it feels like there isn't that kind of risk because you're actually just working from home. You're not going and getting a mortgage. You're not having to worry about if the market changes halfway through a renovation. That could be devastating.
Yes, it can be. Ask anybody who was in the business in 2008 what happened when they were in the middle of a bunch of projects and all of a sudden you couldn't sell your houses.
Right.
It's a big problem. And everything has that kind of risk.
Yeah.
This business doesn't have that because you're literally just, $65 for notary plus a little bit of mail. You mail in the stuff. If it works out, you get a big windfall. And just give you an idea of windfall. So an average claim in our business, what we do, a little over $41,000 per claim. We work on a contingent fee basis, typically working for 40%. So 40%, $16,000 on that kind of a claim. So that's our typical revenue. And by the way, that's all negotiable. You want to work for a little less, work for a little less. If you want to charge a little more, charge a little more. We found that reflects the value that we bring. It's profitable. It helps me pay my staff good wages.
Yeah.
So, it's all contingent. But if it doesn't work out, we lose very little. Now, did we put time and effort in? Sure. Mm-hmm. Not huge amounts. A typical deal takes us 8, maybe 10 hours from beginning to end. So it's not a lot. So if it doesn't work out, it's definitely a disappointment. There's no question. But it's not financially devastating. It's not like I'm dragging a big old mortgage behind me that I have to keep paying. It's not that. It's just you go on and find the next deal.
And so one of the things, if someone is watching this right now and they're thinking about having a job that they could do in addition to their full-time, they have a full-time job and they want to do this on the side in evenings and weekends, is it still possible?
Perfect. Yeah, because we've got to talk to people when they're home.
Yeah.
And often that's exactly when people are home, evenings and weekends. And, I think, in my opinion, you can call people to about 8:30 local time, their time.
Right.
And from about 8:30 in the morning local time, you can make a couple calls at lunchtime. It's, it's really just talking to people. And anytime you have some spare time, you can do that. And thankfully, no one thinks anything of it if you're calling from a cell phone anymore.
Right.
It's not like they're expecting you necessarily in an office.
Right.
So very, very doable. Now, you do have to devote time to it. Like it's not
Right.
It's not magic that if you don't do anything, something magical happens.
This is not a get rich quick kind of thing. You have to actually do it. But speaking of, you mentioned earlier about someone who might be interested in building wealth. So this is an opportunity where someone could actually walk away from their day job and
Yes.
this could replace their income, right?
Definitely. So as I said, average claim size that we do is $41,000. And claims, I would say the bulk of claims are going to be from $20,000 to $50,000. Mm-hmm. So if you're looking at like a bell curve, like what's in the middle of the bell curve, $20,000 to $50,000. Now, there are definitely some six-figure claims. There are definitely lots that are like $100 that, some vacant strip of land that's sold. That's not what we even look at. The other thing that's been going on that's really interesting is, as you know, I think house prices are going through the roof. And I'm having trouble remembering exactly what this was, but I think about 3 years ago, I saw the average sale price in America was about $210,000 or so.
And it's way
now it's over $400,000. And what that means is that the excess funds from tax sale just get bigger. Because what someone pays at a tax sale, which is what creates the overage, is a percentage of the retail value. Right. So if the retail value used to be $200,000, they're probably going to pay about 70% of that at a tax sale. And that's what 7 times 2 is $140,000.
Right.
And if you're talking about a $400,000 house, they're going to pay about 70% of that. So that's $280,000. That just becomes extra overages money. And the overage is just math. It's just the difference between what a bidder paid versus what you owed on taxes. And when the house prices go up, the overages sizes go up. So I have noticed already that we're seeing many more six-figure claims than we did in the past. And I think that's just going to continue.
And so let's take that back to a really simple example, because I know the math can get people can get lost in the weeds.
Sure.
So let's take it back to, so someone went ahead and they lost their house, and the house was worth $100,000.
Okay.
And they owed, just say $20,000 in back taxes. So then it goes ahead, and now the thing that I have found curious is it doesn't go to tax sale right away. There's always a time from the time they lose it to the time it goes to tax sale. So there's also that time, which again, like we've seen the prices go up. So now when it goes to sale, say it's $300,000. Now talk through those numbers.
So, well, I think there's a couple things in there.
Yeah.
One question is, how long does it take a property to go to tax sale? I think is
Right.
one question.
Yes, definitely.
Typically, the taxes have been unpaid for 3 to 4 years.
Right.
So that's number one. So you're talking 3 to 4 years worth of taxes. And on a $100,000 house, that probably would add up to about $20,000 by the time you're done with the penalties and interest.
Right.
From a bidder's perspective, these are people that go to a tax sale and say, I want to get a house, maybe used as a rental or maybe to live in. If they can get 30% off that house, they're pretty excited, right? Wouldn't
Right.
you be? I mean,
Yes.
you wouldn't be. So if they're buying a house that's worth $300,000, but they get it for $210,000, they're excited because, let's face it, wouldn't you be excited if you get a $300,000 house for $210,000? That's what people are doing at tax sale. They're not basing their bid on how much taxes are owed. That's not relevant to them.
Exactly.
What's relevant to the buyer at a tax sale is what it's worth. If they had to go buy a house through a realtor or whatever, what would they pay versus what can they get at this tax sale? They get 30% off, they're jumping for joy. So when houses go up in value, that just means the price paid at tax sale goes way up.
Right.
Proportionally. And it just creates these big spreads. That's why we're seeing the 6-figure overages.
And that's why I think a lot of people get confused is they're like, so at a tax sale, why would somebody pay? Because they're still getting a discount.
Well, there are many bidders.
And there are
that's
many,
why.
yeah.
It's not just one person bidding. I mean, that's the person's dream, but that's not the reality. The reality is on most houses, there are a handful of bidders and 3, 4, 5 bidders. And they're going to bid pretty reliably 70 to sometimes even 80% of retail. Occasionally, I've seen people get auction fever and they'll just bid like more than retail.
Oh, I know.
It happens. Very rarely does anything go for less than 70%.
Right. Right.
And it's just, people get competitive. So it's like, he's not going to get it. I'm going to get it. And they duke it out.
Right.
But what's good about that is that these poor souls that have lost their house at tax sale have an opportunity to get, some money back, probably representing their equity in the house, meaning maybe all of it.
Right.
At least their down payment on the house and just getting something. And it's not only money, it's a little dignity. It's a lot of hope. It's just like with Carrie. I mean, Carrie is now, because of this overage money, she's in a house, she's got her pension, she's got her car, she's got her life back.
Yay!
And, to be a part of that is really a blessing. And that's one thing that if you're the right person for this business, then that will give you a lot of pleasure to know that you've really made a difference in someone's life.
And that's what I was going to say. I think the right person for this business is someone who really likes to help people.
Yes.
Because you'll go the extra mile in that you're going to make sure that you are helping people, so it's a win-win. And I think that a lot of times in real estate, people feel like it has to be a win-lose. And it's so nice with this, it can actually be a win-win.
Yes, because you're taking people that never would have just lost everything. And it's funny. So you think, well, how could it be a win-win? Like, who's losing here?
Right.
The only person that's losing in any way is the government that doesn't get to keep them extra money.
Right.
Because if you don't come pick up your extra money, eventually the government takes it.
And what happens with that money? When they take it, what do they do with it?
So it'll generally go into the just general fund, either the county or the state. And in a couple of states, the accounting entry is still there. So if you show up later, they'll cut you a check.
Yep. But
But in most states, the vast majority of states, there's a deadline.
yeah.
It typically ranges from 1 to 3 years, just depending on the state. And at that time, that's when that word used before, escheat. That's the money escheats to the government. And I don't know the word source, but I think it's a funny word because if we think about the word root, what's the root? Cheat. Escheat. So you've been cheated of your money.
Right.
And it really sums it up in a nutshell. And if you ask for it after, they're like, oh, we're so sorry you missed the deadline. I don't know if they'd say you're sorry. They would just say you missed the deadline.
They'd probably just be like,
they're
you
bureaucrats.
missed the deadlines, yeah.
So they would probably just say you missed the deadline. But it is a serious deadline. It's a statute of limitations,
Right.
as we'd say as lawyers, and it is the end.
The end.
So you need to get in there earlier. And the problem is the people just don't know about the money.
And a lot of times people move away. Like, for instance, if you lost a house in Florida, you may end up moving in with relatives that are in Georgia.
Yes.
And so that mail never catches up with you. You don't get to see it, so you don't even know it exists. So it's a blessing to be able to find someone.
Most places, they don't send a notice. There are only 2 states that I can think of where they actually send any kind of a notice. And even then, they're sending it a month, 2, 3 months after the sale.
Right.
When most likely people have relocated.
Yeah.
At that point. Because what happens after a sale? The bidder shows up that day and says, knock, knock, knock. Hey, I bought the house. You can't stay. And, they kind of slink off, get a U-Haul, and go with their heads down. And so we're really taking these people who are just down in the dirt of life at that point. They're having a really tough time.
Or I know, like with the woman that you talked about with the homeless, she was in the hospital, so she could not even be around when it happened.
Yeah.
So I love your stories, and I was hoping you would share another one. One of my favorite ones is you were teaching a seminar, you're teaching this process to entrepreneurs, and someone came and they said they wanted to tell you a story.
Oh.
I think he was from
Milosi.
Yes.
You're talking about Milosi.
Yeah.
So I was teaching a seminar, because occasionally we'll teach how to do this at a live event format. And so my staff lets me know during break, like, oh, this guy named Milosi is one of your students that bought a home study course, wants to see you. And I said, okay, where is he? And he was in the hallway. So I go out to the hallway, and there's Milosi, this very nice guy. He's Hawaiian. And he introduced himself. I'd met him before, but he introduced himself, seemed very happy. So I was happy about that. And I said, so what brings you here? And he said, well, I just wanted to show you something. And he hands me a check. And the check was for, say, $320,000, I think, if I remember correctly. And it's an actual check. Is this for me? And he said, no, it's not for you. And I said, oh, okay, what is it? And it was an overage he had recovered that he was depositing in the bank, but he brought it to me to show it to me. And I said, well, that's fantastic, because the $320,000 overage is a really big one. That's like exceptionally large.
Yeah, right.
And I said, so, is this your first one? What have you been doing? He said, no, it's actually my 4th one. And I said, wow, good for you. You're picking some big ones. And he said, yeah. I said, I thought, if I'm going to make an effort, I may as well make an effort that'll really change my life financially. And he said, I said, so what have you done up to now? He said, well, they're all about the same size. And he said, the first one, I paid off all my credit card debt.
Yay!
The second one, I paid off my house. The third one, I put a bunch of money in the bank, so I have savings. And he said, now with this 4th one, and he just kind of paused. And I said, what are you doing? And he said, I'm buying my daughter a house.
Yay!
And his daughter is 28, has a first baby who's 1, very nice husband. And just, 2 young people getting started in life. She's a nurse and he's an electrician. So they're getting started in life. And Milosi's buying them a house and just paying cash for it. And it just struck me, if you're that age and you have a free and clear house, how much further are you ahead in life? Because usually for young couples, they have a lot of financial stress sometimes. And that's not good. It's not good for the family. It's not good for marriage. It's not good for anybody.
Yep.
And so by, relieving that and giving this huge gift, and I'm not a big hugger guy, but I gave him a hug, even though I'm not a big hugger guy. But he's I'm just so proud of him, because, he really has the right heart. And, you can do things, and, sometimes we waive fees on occasion if it's the right person.
Yeah.
I have one I just did. I'll tell you a new story. So we have this new client called Brooke.
Okay.
And this went on for a while, because sometimes these cases go on. So we sign up Brooke's dad to make a claim, and he dies. Unfortunately, he self-induced drug overdose.
Oh.
So really sad. And Brooke's a minor, under 18. So she gets a guardian appointed. So we track down the guardian and say, look, we've got this money that's coming, and, I'm sure it will be helpful for her. And so then we went and pursued the money, and we finally got the check. And during that time, she turned 18. So really nice. So Brooke didn't know really anything about this deal. She didn't seem to understand it. Signed up on the phone with her saying, hey, we've got this check for you. It's another $40,000 claim. So it's kind of normal size claims. And I was just talking to her because she's young. I was interested to hear what she was doing, because she's lost her dad. She lost her mom. She's lost everybody. Wow. She has no family of any kind. And so I said, so what are you doing? She said, well, I'm going to beauty school to learn how to do nails. You have to be, I guess, licensed where she is to do nails and just getting started. And I said, that's really great. I'm really happy you're doing something. And, I said, well, do you have plans for this money when you get it? And she said, well, I really could use a car because it's hard to get around. And she said, I also need to pay the tuition. And I said, well, you're in luck because you can do both with this. And that one we just gifted her, meaning we just did a pro bono because I'm thinking this young girl, 18 years old, just starting out in life. And she seems to have a good stable head. Like she's not talking about, I'm going to go to Coachella. It's nothing like that. Like she's gone to beauty school and trying to build her life. So I said, I'd really like to do this for you. And we have a family-run business. So I talked to my brother about it. But I'm like, I would like to do this for this young woman. And he was completely in agreement. So we did that, for what the lawyers call pro bono, just means free. Yep. That's all.
Yeah.
And it's really a pleasure to be able to do that, to be in a position to do that. Because, I don't want to do that when my own family won't eat.
Right.
Because we got to eat. But I think when you earn money, you have the privilege of being able to help others. Right. And you should. In the right circumstance.
Yeah.
In the right circumstances. So normally I'm very comfortable with getting paid for my work. But there are times when I want to choose and be able to just help people. And that's what I say for this business, the right person is the person who truly in their heart wants to help and is comfortable making money. You should have both. And if you do it, you're perfect for the business. If you're missing one of those, just pick a different business. That's all. This isn't the right business for you, and that's fine. Everything's not for everybody.
So you have an online class that people can learn how to do this because you've created an exact process that makes it very simple for people, right?
Yeah, we've been doing this business since 2012, and we have it dialed in. We have dialed in how where to do the business, how to deal with like complications that come up. Like you have ones where it's an estate, you have ones where you're dealing with minors, you have ones where there are heirs that you have to figure out who can sign up. There's contracts that have to be signed. So we've dialed all that in. We've worked on it for years. So we have it pretty dialed in. And also the conversation you have with people, because the challenge in this business is not that the deals are not that hard. It's nothing too complicated. It's just getting those people to believe you enough just to try it.
Right.
They don't have to be your best friend. Like, oh, Jennifer, you have to come over for Thanksgiving. It's not that. You just have to get them to say, I'll try this. I don't have anything to lose. They often don't think they're ever going to get any money because they think they have a special black cloud that follows them around, rains on their parade all the time, and they have good evidence of that. I don't argue with them because, if you lost your house at tax sale and it was recent, you could very much be feeling that way. And I'm not going to invalidate anybody's feelings. I get it. Yep. So, we try to put ourselves as best we can kind of on the same side of the table as them. I don't see them as like the enemy or some cow I'm milking for money. I really want to help them.
Right.
And if you can do that when you're talking to people, if you can have them just feel that you really do care about them, that you're not just there to like make a quick buck, it really goes a long way. Like when I talk to Brooke about, so what are your plans for the future? What are you doing? And, I'm really thinking, how can I help this young woman with, maybe that time when I was first talking to her, maybe some advice or whatever. When you start asking questions like that, you don't have to tell people you care. They sense that you care.
Yeah.
And if they sense you care, then they'll sign up with you.
Right.
And, you do the best you can. You can't catch everyone. Nope. You'll get many of them. Some you won't. But you do the absolute best you can, and you'll do a lot of good for a lot of people.
So it's 100% online. It's a virtual class. People can do it. And it's also
at their own pace.
Self-paced. Yeah. So they can do it at their own pace, especially if they have a full-time job and they want to do it in their evenings and their weekends. And then also you have a normal price and then you have a special price for today, right?
So our normal price, which includes support and all the things people need, is $2,497. So it's $2,497. What I want to do for people, because I know that in today's climate, maybe that's a hill too high to climb right now, and people are just trying to build up. So for people that are listening and watching this, and if you really want to do this sincerely, we'll take $1,000 off of that. So it's only $1,497. It's my way of helping you get started. Just a little push behind to get like a little kid riding a bicycle. You can just get started going down the hill. So
beautiful.
We'll give you some help.
And so what does that class include?
So we teach you the business. We teach you where, what the business is generally, which is the excess funds after tax sales, and then how to pick the state and counties where you're going to do the business in, what's right for you. And there's not one answer. Often the answer is person specific. Like if you're from a particular place, you're going to be like, I'd rather do it there because I feel more familiar. Or if you live in a particular place, that may be where you pick. So we show you all the differences. We show you, most importantly, all the legal research which we've done in all the states to know how long do you have to actually claim that money. Are there any special rules? Do you have to register with anything? And usually you don't, but we make sure that we've got all that dialed in. I'm a lawyer, I have a law firm, we did all that research, so that's all dialed in, put it that way. And that took a lot of time to do. So you can imagine, about 10 hours per state. So it was an enormous effort. But we give everybody that. We also teach you how to fill in the forms to get the money, teach you about the conversation. That's something called a call script, which is the conversation you have with people, and how to deal with their questions, because they're going to have questions, as they should, and give you good answers to those questions. And also support. So if you have a question, like someone says yes, and you're like, what do I do now? I'm so excited. Supports that you can call in or email, whichever you prefer, and get some help, because we do the business and we can help you through those things, because I want you to be successful. It's the most important. I want you to be successful, and I want you to help people, because we have people that desperately need help. We can't depend on the government to help everybody. They're not going to do that job. It's people. They're going to help people. It's you and me that are going to help these people to get a little of their dignity, a lot of their money, and some hope back.
So question that happens a lot of times is if somebody doesn't have any kind of experience in real estate, can they still do it?
Sure. Yeah, this has to do with experience as a human, just to be kind of funny. You just have to be able to talk to people. Right. So you do have to be willing to pick up the phone and talk to someone, say, great news, I've got a refund. We've identified a refund that's owed to you. We can go do all the work to get it. So it's related to real estate, but it's not real estate with any of those like math complexities or anything like that. It's quite simply calling people. So you do need to be willing to reach out and call people. That's another, I would say, qualification for the business. And if you can just reach out, be nice to people, walk at the pace they're willing to walk, then you can do fine. And if you don't want to do that, if you just want like a completely online business, this wouldn't be for you. And I'm always interested in telling people like, who is it right for and who's it not? Because, if you're going to get involved and spend your valuable time, money, and effort on this, I want you to be able to say, yes, I feel good about this decision to really try this and really put my heart into it. And you do have to be willing to talk to people, because that is where the connection is made. So.
Absolutely. Talking to people, I think, is the key, because you have to just be able to help them understand what's happened and why they are deserving of this money, that it's not a scam. It's real.
It's funny about that, because they all, of course, they're naturally a little defensive, but they have what I call the two sumo wrestlers in the ring.
Yeah.
And one sumo wrestler is, I'm scared and doubtful. The other sumo wrestlers, I really need the money and I hope this is true. And these two guys go at it.
Right.
And they're trying to shove each other out of the ring. And you've got to just add some extra heft behind the, I really need the money, I hope this is true guy. And so the more you talk to them, the more support you're giving to that guy. And eventually, if you're having conversations, you'll push them out. Another good thing, and this is for more you hardcore sales folks out there, no one's going to spend hours on the phone with you if they won't say yes.
Yeah.
They're just not. If they don't want to talk or aren't open, more typical is, oh, we're having dinner right now, I can't really talk. I see your number on caller ID, I'll call you later. And then they don't call back.
Right.
That's more typical. They just are trying to avoid talking. That's okay. Some people are going to do that. And you can lead a horse to water. You cannot make it drink. Thankfully, you don't spend hours and hours on that. You're going to have some people that they're not going to come over. And that's okay. You have to just understand that's where they are in their life path. You have to be okay with it. It's sad. Maybe try to call them in a couple of weeks and say, your file's still on my desk. I'd really like to see you get this money. Maybe send them a letter. We have some ways to deal with them to help maybe bring them around. But honestly, some people will, some people won't. And you just spend your time and effort on the people that are willing to talk to you and listen. Because if they understand the offer, the answer is yes. If they understand no risk to them, there's a big pile of money available. I'm talking to people where they're going to get a check for $24,000, $25,000 from my company when we're successful with this. That's a lot of money, especially if you're someone who's lost your house at tax sale.
Right.
That gets you back into housing, gets you a reliable car to get to work. It gets you the things that you need. Heck, I took a homeless woman and I got her resituated.
Right.
That's the blessing that you get to be on other people. So if that appeals to you, then really good business.
And one of the other things, you mentioned this earlier, but just to reiterate and alleviate this concern, if someone is not a techie and they want to do this business, there is support for them if they get stuck.
Yes, and it's not a terribly technical business. You do need to be able to do email, operate your phone. I'm sure everybody can do that. The skip tracing is, I would say, slightly technical, but it's nothing like programming a website. It's just finding people. And so you're going to check a couple databases and you have to sort of look at it and sort through who's who and just some tricks on that. Like if you see someone and it says that the skip tracing says they're related to someone who's say 25 years younger. It's probably a son or a daughter or a son and daughter-in-law because there's 25 years between. So we give you all those tricks. We teach you, for example, if someone has passed away, which is common in this business, they pass away, the house gets lost for taxes. The skip tracing programs can get you the family members, and we teach you how to identify who's who can inherit, like out of the whole group of people, who is it that can actually inherit and who is it you can actually work with. So we teach you all those things. And those are just nuances that took us time, but it's not technical in the sense that you need to be able to invent a microprocessor or program the next Facebook. It's not that. It's just more straightforward than that.
And the fact that you have help, that you have support, you know that there's support for you. If you have questions, they can email support and get those answered.
We take calls too.
Or call.
Actually, a unique company that still takes phone calls.
Good.
So.
Well, and I think so. I wanted to go over a couple things that we talked a little bit about earlier, but as if somebody was thinking about real estate investing, they're thinking about, oh my gosh, my credit. What about my credit? And with this business, you don't need your own credit. You don't need to go get a mortgage. Yeah.
As long as you can come up with, $60 for notary, which, assume
right.
You don't need a mortgage for that or a loan. It's not a credit dependent business. It's kind of like the law practice that I've been doing since 1995. It's a service business. Mm-hmm. When a client comes into my office and wants me to do something for them, it's not a big investment. It's an investment of my time and effort. Even when it's a contingent fee case, I invest my time and effort, and hopefully we're successful and we make money. Sometimes it's not. Overall, in balance, these are mostly successful because the money is on the list because it's there. So it's not particularly a big challenge to get it, but you're just investing your effort and your care.
And so another concern that I've heard is that someone who has absolutely no experience in this business, are they going to be able to be successful?
Yes. Nobody has any experience in this business but us. It's a unique right. little niche, a dusty little corner. And I'll just tell you what I think is a relatively embarrassing story, but I'll tell you anyway. We're all friends. So I became a real estate attorney in 1995. I became an attorney in 1995. My focus has always been real estate. Back in the day, back before 1995, I used to buy houses at tax sale, buy houses at mortgage foreclosure sales. I was in that world, renovating houses and all that. I never gave even 2 seconds thought to what happened to the money that the house just sold for at tax sale. Didn't even think about it. Because when I would go to tax sale, I would hopefully get a property or two. I'd run out, call the locksmith, see if the house is occupied or vacant, assess the work that needed to be done, bring in the contractor, do all that.
Right.
I didn't give a second's thought that, wow, the county sold 30 houses today and they just collected, $1 million. I wonder what they do with all that money. It had nothing to do with me. Right. So I didn't wonder about it. And I almost feel silly not to have thought about this earlier. I literally left tens of millions of dollars on the table because between you and me, I used to go to this auction and there's this guy named Newman. And Newman used to just annoy the heck out of me. He just bid when I bid. I was convinced of it. I would bid and he just wanted to chase me away from the auction. So he would just bid just because I was bidding. Mm. And, so I'd be there, I had my little budget. And this was before I was a lawyer, didn't have that much money. And he just tried to knock me out of the auction. And what I should have done and didn't realize is that all that competitive bidding was just creating overages. If I knew then what I knew today, Newman would have been my best friend. I'd be like, you got another one, congratulations. Then I would have gone and collected the overages money. Because when you force the bidding up, it just makes more overages money.
Right.
And it's just funny because sometimes you learn these things. And it took me till 2005 to learn this existed at all, just because a client came in. That was 10 years after I was a practicing real estate attorney. Oh, by the way, to make matters worse, when I was in law school, I was a licensed real estate agent to help me make money. And when I became a lawyer, I also opened a title company and owned one. If anybody should have known about this, it was me.
Yes.
And I didn't. And then when I talked to my other client who in 2011 told me about this as a business, then everything came together. That was 16 years after I became an attorney and about 20 years after I became a real estate investor. So this is a dusty little niche. So if you didn't know about it, don't be surprised. It's not hard to do. There's a system that we've developed over more than 10 years in this business. We've developed a system. It's organized, and it's just about executing on it. If you can just follow the simple directions, you can be successful. And as I said, everybody's not going to say yes, I guarantee it. Some will. The ones that will, you're going to really help them a lot, and you're going to make a lot of money, and you're going to feel great about what you do. So I can't know what could be better than that in a business.
Exactly. To be able to help people and to have something that you can also do from home, I think is something that people are really looking for right now.
Yes. I mean, it makes sense. As I say, we all need to be the captain of our own ship today.
Exactly.
And, when COVID came, we actually had our best year ever.
Wow.
Everybody was home. They were so easy to get a hold of. And they all needed money.
Right.
It's literally our business tripled that year.
Wow.
And it's just because people, they're home, they need money, they're under stress. And the other thing that's happening is the deals are getting much larger, which means we get to give a lot more help to people. Helps a lot more when I get them $50,000 is better than 20.
Right.
So it helps them more substantially. And obviously it's better for us too. But that's just a side effect.
And I remember another concern that I've heard people say sometimes is the government going to be mad at you for getting this money?
Not any more than the IRS is mad about getting you a tax refund. Seriously, even the IRS,
right?
They don't send you a nasty note saying, "Well, we owed you $250, but here's a check for $200. We think you should take this." Even they don't do that.
Right.
So it's nothing to be concerned about there.
Right.
The money is sitting there waiting to be claimed. It's literally excess funds. It's just sitting there. If you claim it, the bureaucracy is happy to write you a check. And it's really interesting. Sometimes people think that it might be harder if it's a bigger claim. Exactly the same process for a $1 claim as a $1 million claim. I think the government bureaucrat doesn't even think about it. Like, it's just a check. If it passes, checks all the boxes, they give you a check.
And let's talk about who the business is right for, because I know you have certain students, you have veterans, you have stay-at-home moms, you have all sorts of different people from all sorts of different walks of life, right?
Yes. And I'll tell you who tends to do well. One, someone will actually just adopt and execute the system. Like, you really need to be someone that's open to, we have a system that works. Especially at first, just use it as we design it. You're going to have your own experience that you may then, as time goes by, say, I'm going to make this little change. That's great. Get some experience first. The second thing is someone has to be willing to do it. Right. It's not magic. It's not like you get the course and it's on your computer and somehow it makes you money. You have to actually do it. You have to pick up the phone and talk to people, have the conversations, and put yourself out there a little bit. That someone may say, "Hey, I'm having dinner. I want to talk to you."
Yeah.
And then we'll take your call later. Okay. You just need to be okay with that. But I've also found that people that are successful generally have a couple of features. One, they really do have that heart of helping. They want to help people and they want to have a great business. So you have to have both, because if you don't want to have a great business, then I think you just don't have a lot of incentive to do anything. Right. It's more like you're a dreamer, you're going to save people, but you're not really going to do anything. Right. You need to be comfortable that you can and should and will make a lot of money. I've also found, though, that the people that do have a heart for helping, the person on the other side of the phone picks up on that. Yeah. So we have a lot of medical professionals. We have nurses who've been doing it for 20 years and their back is hurting, their feet are hurting. They're dealing with the administration is tiresome. And so they move to this and they move very easily. Mm-hmm. We have people who are EMTs. We also have people that are sort of, I don't want to say second career people, that maybe they're 50 and they've done well, maybe gotten to middle manager or above. And, now maybe they've lost their job and it's hard to replace because, it's real that people over 50 do get discriminated against for sure in employment. Or maybe they're just tired of doing what they did. Maybe they've just done it for long enough and they want to run their own show. And this is a great run your own show business because it doesn't require a big investment of time, money, or effort. And they can just do it. And you have a cell phone already. Right. So pick up the phone and start calling people and signing them up. And if you can devote the effort to it, you'll do great. Yeah. So I think it's really for people that are willing to follow a system and put in the effort and ideally have a heart for helping because it will get picked up on. We have people that did phone sales and were good at it that do well with this business. The people that tend to struggle, if you won't make the calls, it doesn't happen. It's not the kind of business where you're going to send out some emails and it'll happen. It won't. I wish I could tell you that. It'd be really nice, but it's not true and I wouldn't tell you that. You really just need to make the calls. And if you do it, accept that some people will, some people won't, and be okay with that. You do the best that you can to help the most people that you can. So, I think of that. So when you think about yourself, think about whether you fit into one of those criteria and you'll know if this is right for you. And I also think people that are listening to this, it's either pulling you towards it or it doesn't seem very interesting.
Right.
And if it's pulling you towards it, you should do it. If it doesn't seem very interesting, don't do it.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, Bob Diamond, what a pleasure it is to have you on the
Thank you.
show today. Thank you for all that you've done, and thanks for creating this course and this opportunity for so many people.
It's really my pleasure. It's my pleasure to provide the opportunity and to send, like, sort of deputize people to go out there and help people.
Yeah.
And, we get stories in a couple times a week at least. Not a couple times a day, a couple times a week. We get stories in of, like, it's a smiling student with the check, sometimes with the people. I don't know, did you ever show you that check with the lady in the Walmart parking lot?
Yes, I love that one. Oh.
So, and I'll ask, I know someone's going to edit this thing if there's a video version. If you could put up that picture, I'll just describe it, and I'll describe it if they can't find the picture. So I get an email, and I open it up, and there's a woman who has been around for a number of years. She's got to be 90 something. Her knuckles and joints are sort of swollen like older people get sometimes. And she's sitting there, and I know she's in a Walmart parking lot because I see the sign behind it says Walmart, and she's in a brown truck. But she's sitting there, she's got like earrings on and her jewelry on, and she's smiling and holding a check. And I was like, this isn't one of my students, because my students usually aren't 90. I mean, I have nothing against 9-year-olds, but it's just not the profile. And so I'm reading this story, and it turns out that it was one of my regular students. And she had found this woman who was living homeless in a Walmart parking lot in her truck. She was 92 years old, and she had been kicked out of her senior citizens trailer park because she let some guy she felt sorry for crash on her couch. And apparently that was against the rules, and they used that as a way to get rid of her. And so the poor woman at 92 was living in a Walmart parking lot.
Wow.
And so my student, God bless her, she got this woman $25,000, just gave her all the money, just said, you know what, gave her all the money. That's getting her back into housing, got her back into housing at this point.
Right.
So got her back into housing, not living in her truck in the Walmart parking lot. And she was all dolled up for her picture. And I was just like, it was just the coolest thing. And, those are the things that make me happy. So send me your pictures like that. It's just, the picture of the story just really, it's just, there's so many stories like that because the people that lose their house at tax sale, there is a sad story underlying it. And you can be the silver lining in that sad cloud.
Right.
As that's your job. And, I get to do my pleasures. I get to, teach you, send you out, and then you go and do that, and everybody's happier.
And then you get the picture that shows how we've made a difference in the world.
And the other thing is people always ask this, and I'll just say this because I know people are just like, why do you teach this? They're like, there's something going on here. All right, so I'll give you a couple numbers. 3,000 properties sold at tax sale per day. The money typically sits around for 3 years. The tax sales happen every business day in America. There are 3,000 counties in America. So if we think about that, 3,000 tax sales a day, and by taxes, I mean properties that are sold, and the money sits around for 3 years. Can you imagine the pile of monies and the number of deals that are out there? It's like unfathomable. So we do in our business typically 200 deals a year, plus or minus a few. So we've covered approximately like this morning's worth of tax sales, maybe. Because, all properties don't have overages, but anything with a house does. So yes, we covered this morning's overages. Can you take the other 3 years of overages?
Right.
And it's just, and every day when that money is cheats, it's gone. And I feel terrible about that because you have these people that really need the money desperately. And because there just are not enough people doing this, it's just not there. And also, people also ask, well, aren't there a lot of people doing this? And the answer is no. And what I'd encourage you to look at when you get the course, and we'll teach you how to get the list, take a look at the list and what you should notice about the list. And I think you've probably noticed this.
Yes, I have.
You'll see that even big claims, $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 claims, six-figure claims, are all the way up until the time of escheatment. Yeah. Like you'll see ones that are 2.5 years old, $80,000 still sitting there, $90,000, $100,000, $50,000. And they're really spread out across the whole spectrum. And to me, that's the biggest proof in the pudding, where it's like, all right, there's not a lot of activity going on in this business. Just because you see those big and old claims. And, that to me is where you're going to see it for yourself. But I love that question, by the way, that, why, because I think it's a fair question. Yeah. I think the why do I teach is a very fair question. And we do make money with the selling education for sure. I like doing it. That's certainly not the only reason I do it at all. But I think it's a fair question. I think the people in my seat should always be answering that question.
But I also think the interesting question that also is a follow-up to that is that you're teaching something that you actually do. So a lot of times people teach something that maybe they did 10 years ago or 20 years ago, a long time ago. So you're actually teaching something that you actually have a team, a whole staff of people that actually do it right now today.
Yes. And we do that because if we didn't do that, I couldn't teach it and sit here with a straight face. So what we do, just so everybody knows, because you might, where do you do the business? I'm going to avoid that. So what we do is we kind of circulate around the country. We do a handful of deals in one state, a handful of deals in the next state, a handful of deals in the next state. And we're constantly just going around like that. Frankly, it's a nuisance to do because each state has slightly different rules. Yep. And it's a lot for us to keep track of. But it's the only way I can honestly say to people, oh, you're doing Connecticut? Yeah, we helped Carrie Johnson, last year resolve that. So we know how it works because we're doing claims on a consistent basis. That way, if something changes, I know about it and I can alert my student base there's something new.
Right.
Like here's a new one. There's the state of Michigan, for example, didn't give back money. Then a case went up to the Supreme Court. And here's the case, just in a nutshell, which very good job on the lawyers that brought this case up. They found a veteran that had lost his house for, I think you saw the stories, like $2 worth of taxes or something.
Yes.
He miscalculated the interest on his tax bill. And it was literally over like $2 worth of taxes. The guy loses his house and they said, oh, gee, sorry. And he's like, well, my house is free and clear. Can you give me the extra money above the $2 back? And they're like, nope, we're just keeping it.
That was Michigan.
Yep. So some smart lawyers filed a lawsuit and went all the way to the Michigan Supreme Court. And the Michigan Supreme Court said, well, this isn't right. Yeah, you can collect the taxes, but the extra money belongs to that man. It was his equity in his house.
Right.
And so the law changed so that now in Michigan, they have to give back the money.
Yay!
And it's so great. And it's so interesting in this business, it's actually going the right direction, meaning, more good is coming.
Right.
Michigan is still, I tell my students not to go there yet. Because the problem with Michigan is the Supreme Court said you have to go back 7 years and give everybody back their money. And they don't have the money. They spent it.
Right.
And so the local counties are saying, well, we don't have the money. So from my point of view, we just work in different places till they resolve that.
Yeah.
So, we'll go in there, probably next year we'll go in and just test the waters and let everybody know if it's safe to swim. We'll go and see if there's sharks first. You can figure it out later. But we do that and we go around and also, we're not so big that, we're sucking up all the air in the room.
Right.
Yes, we'll do 200 deals a year out of 3,000 properties per day sold at tax sale. So
per day.
It's not, it's like we went to the ocean and took a big old 5-gallon bucket of water out. Yeah. Doesn't really impact anybody other than make sure I can teach things that are accurate.
Right.
And we can give good advice. And the people you talk to, by the way, on the phone, like in our support, do overages.
Yeah.
They actually do it. So it's not like you're talking, they have to look in some manual.
Right. These are firsthand knowledge that they're sharing. And then also they have you and a team if it's something they don't know firsthand as well.
We have a whole team behind us and ultimately I'm the technical resource.
And the legal resource.
And legal, technical legal. Like if there's something complicated to figure out, it goes to my desk.
Right.
And it's great because what we do with that is that the support people ask me, I answer the question, I'll draft a response or tell them, then they'll tell the people, and then my support people learn that. So then they get that much better. So we really try to give great support because I think it's just too many companies these days don't do that. They say, we're so glad you called. If you'll just wait on hold for the next 45 minutes, we'll talk to you. I'm like, well, you must not be that glad I called.
Exactly.
It's 45 minutes.
So I think it's beautiful. Now it's a course they can do on their own. They do have customer support, and it's always being updated and changed for them. So
it's always updated. New things happen. We have new insights sometimes.
Right.
And because we're trying things ourselves and we're like, oh, that worked, then we put that into the course. And all the materials you access online. So as soon as something new is uploaded, that's what's in your online learning center.
Right.
And we have all the agreements in there. And that way, if for some reason I have to update an agreement or make something special for a special state, it gets uploaded. And by the way, some people ask this too. There's no cost to that. There's no monthly fee or anything like that. It's a one-time flat fee. You pay for it. That lets us have a budget to provide support, a budget to do what we need to do to run the business, and then you go off and go make a bunch of money. But don't you're not going to be sending us money every month. I I don't like that, nor do I need it from people. I mean, I don't like doing that.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, thank you, Bob. Thanks for being here, and thanks for doing what you do.
It's my pleasure, quite honestly. So thanks, and I hope to see you in training, on support, and in nice pictures with checks and with stories from the people that you've helped, and that I get to feel a little emotional pleasure out of that. So look forward to seeing you there.